Attention, attention. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all so much for coming out on this very cold afternoon. My name is Teresa Haley. I am the president of Haley & Associates Envisions 1908. We are here today because of Sonya Massey. A young black woman was murdered, assassinated in her home by a deputy sheriff. If you don't know the story, it goes a little bit something like this. Sonya called for help. She said there was a prowler outside of her house. Someone was trying to break in. Deputy sheriff showed up, walked around Sonya's house, said that they didn't see anything, knocked on her door, had a conversation with her, asked her whose car was that parked in the driveway that had nothing to do with anything, went back to Sonya, confronted her, followed her in her house, uninvited, and said, basically, we need to talk. Sonya called 911 and had them on the telephone. The deputy sheriff told 911, it's okay, we're here, you can go ahead and hang up. Sonya told them, no, stay on the call. I need you on this call. She turns around, she looks at the deputy and says, can you hand me my Bible? And you can see he got very, very irritated when she says, can you hand me my Bible? The next thing he says to her, hey, don't you have something on the pot? You need to go over there and turn it off. And she was like, okay. So she got up, she goes to the kitchen, she picks up the pot with two pot holders, proceeds to move the pot off the stove, and she says, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. This demon devil got so upset and said, what did you say? I'll shoot you in the effing face. But before you can count to 3, he shot her in the face. And then he didn't want to call for help. He didn't want to try to resuscitate her or get help. This is why we're here today. The day before Thanksgiving, of all days, you talk about being grateful. Sonya's Massey's family had to spend their first holidays without Sonya, her children, her parents. Her father is here today and you'll hear from him. But what a horrible time to start the holiday season without your loved one, especially one who was assassinated. I don't say murder. She was assassinated. And as a black woman, I fear for my life as a result of it. You call for help? And I want to say to all of America, when you're calling for help, don't call 911. Call 899, 811. There are other numbers that you can call for medical attention, especially if there's mental health crisis involved. We are moving forward with our lives, but the Massey family cannot move forward with their lives. They are forced to move forward with their lives. And what was ironic about getting that call the Wednesday before Thanksgiving is I worked on the Earl Moore case. And those 2 individuals were released. We were told that they were going to be released the day before Thanksgiving on television. The family did not receive a call. And why is this a coincidence? I personally, Teresa Haley, contacted attorney Ben Crump and said, Ben, I need you here. Ben and I have been friends working on cases since Trayvon Martin. And let me tell you, before Trayvon Martin, deja vu, another young black man was killed in Florida. But because he did not come from socioeconomic background or have parents like Trayvon Martin had parents that could hire an attorney like Ben Crump, that was swept under the rug. As the former state president for the NAACP, I worked on the case in Chicago. Young black man shot 16 times in the back. Walking down the street, the police officer was let go. Enough is enough. We are tired of being sick and tired. And I am tired of talking right now. So at this time, I'm going to bring up some members of our community. Some of them serve on the new commission for the Massey Commission. Some of them are just community leaders. Some of them are just residents. But most importantly, we have Sonya Massey's father here today, and you're going to hear from Mr. James Wilburn. But first, I want to bring up Calvin Christensen to speak. Let's give him a hand as he comes forward. Let's encourage these young people.
Just to reiterate, my name is Calvin Christian. Thank you, Teresa, for inviting me. I serve on the Sonya Massey Commission, and I serve on the Sonya Massey Commission to bring a change to the community. And I want to bring a change because after looking and viewing the video, enough is enough. We have to do change for the community and the police department. When I looked at the video, all I could think about were my children. And if my children were to call 911 and ask for help, how would the police respond to them? And that's why I decided that I was going to serve on the Sonya Massey Commission. I want to point out, too, as well, that in viewing the video, this is not just a one-off occurrence. How the police were speaking before they even interacted with Sonya Massey, they do that a lot. But I just want to say thank God for body camera footage. Thank God for it. Because now it's just bringing a light to not just one bad apple or not just one bad seed, but it's showing in all the entire police department and how change needs to be started and needs to continue. Even though we have the Safety Act right now, yes, changes needs to be implemented into the Safety Act. And not only that, but even for the appellate court to rule the day before Thanksgiving, and we have the family that is living without Sonya Massey. I mean, come on now. How can the appellate court do that? But right now, the appellate court has ruled that Sean Grayson, he won't have pretrial determinations until January 2nd. But right now, they are leaving it up to the Supreme Court to rule whether he can remain in custody based off the Safety Act. So right now, I think everybody needs to lean on the Supreme Court and say, hey, you guys need to step in within these next 35 days. That's what this is about. The Illinois Supreme Court, step in now. Don't let it wait. Step in now. Thank you.
So I did a speech a couple years ago that said the time is now to stand up and fight. The time is now to do what's right. The time is now to take a stand. The time is now for our Supreme Court justice to do what you can and do the right thing. Let's keep this creep in jail. She was somebody's mother. She was somebody's daughter, somebody's granddaughter. And that family doesn't have her anymore. How can you say that we didn't have enough evidence? Everybody watched it on national TV. I have friends in other countries who watched this and said, oh my God, is that what happens in America? Yeah, I'm ashamed. It's truly unfortunate that in 2024, we are still dealing with this and keep knocking at the door. Well, we need to knock the door down and knock those doors open. We wanted to do this press conference, this rally, right across the street from the appellate court to say, enough is enough. And are you blind? Did you not see or hear what the rest of us saw or heard? This is not about politics. This is about people. This is about a young woman losing her life. And at this time, I'm going to bring up our next speaker. And as you come up, please introduce yourselves. Tell them your name, if you're representing yourself or if you're representing an organization. Yes, sir. Come on up. Let's give him a hand.
Hello, everyone. My name is Evan Brown. I wasn't prepared to speak. I do, have a strong conviction for justice and the truth. And obviously, what happened with Sonya and her family is unforgivable. To focus on the current issue of Sean Grayson being released, this does seem like these appellate court judges are kind of politicizing their own agenda and putting that upon the process here. We have faith that the Supreme Court will do the right thing. And this time, me personally, I'm not speaking for anyone but myself. I do want to call for our local elected officials to make strong statements condoning these actions of these appellate judges and also, calling for the Supreme Court and also our state senators, state representatives, the governor, and even our federal representatives to make strong statements and put the pressure on the Supreme Court to do what's right. We've rehashed what took place at Sonya's home, and under no circumstances someone like Sean Grayson should ever be out again. And I also want to add, I'm currently serving on the Massey Commission in the work group focus on law enforcement wellness, training, and cultural competency. And the group is made up of primarily current and former law enforcement officials and apparatus. And they are pretty resistant to any measured reforms, any real bold changes that I've pushed forth in the group. And I encourage some of the media to come attend some of these meetings. They're public. The Massey Commission, it's all public. We need a little more scrutiny on the process here. We don't want Sonya's death to be politicized. It's really a tragedy that these judges have done that. And we want to make sure that justice is served and Sean Grayson never sees the public again. Thank you.
Speaking of the Safety Act, you all know that a couple of years ago when we were pushing the Safety Act, I supported it, my organization supported it. We thought it was really a good thing, especially the no cash bail. So many black and brown people are in jail. They lose their families, they lose their homes, they lose their jobs just because they can't afford bail. So that was our main push in the black and brown community in supporting the Safety Act. But it's been taken totally out of content. I'm asking the legislators to go back and to visit the act and see what we can do to tweak it, because it definitely needs tweaking. If a person is charged with murder, not even convicted yet, they are a risk to society. If not themselves, they are a risk to the rest of us. If Sean Grayson was to get out today, he can change his hair color, his eye color. We wouldn't even know him. He would blend in with the community. I wouldn't feel safe, and I hope that you wouldn't feel safe. So we're asking our legislators to revisit it, to say if someone is charged with murder, double murder, to keep them in jail. The judges need to use their discretion, but they also need to use common sense. Because this 3-panel judges decided that he was not a risk, he was not a harm to himself or the rest of us. We need to revisit it. We need to revise the Safety Act as it's written today. Because I got family members who are charged with murder, who are sitting in jail, but they also got a drug charge. But guess what? They've made that drug charge higher than a murder charge. They ain't hurt nobody that didn't want to buy the drugs. But when you look at our system, they're considered a menace to society. So is Sean Grayson. At this time, I'm going to ask Reverend Gary to come up. Let's give him a hand as he comes forward.
My name is Minister Gary T. Pierce, Kia David Ministries. I've resided in Springfield since 2001. I've been through some things myself as far as when it comes to racial discrimination. I lived like 2 or 3 blocks from this young lady that got killed by the police. I had encounters with them myself, and some of them were good, some of them were bad. You know, I've had a friendship with some of them, and then some of them, you know, I just don't trust. It's just like somebody said, when you call 911, you want to be able to trust them to come and take care of business. I called them about a neighbor of mine that wanted to cut down my trees without my permission. I called them. He called them and told them I had a gun, and you could hear the sirens before I even got there. You know, so I mean, we in this community. I'm from Northern Illinois. I grew up in Northern Illinois. I live in Springfield now, like I said, since 2001. I've suffered more discrimination in Central Illinois than I have anywhere else I've lived. I lived in Louisiana, and I didn't have no problems. My wife is from Louisiana. I never had the problems that I had around here. And I'm not trying to say that everybody in Central Illinois is racist, but it's a lot of racism. And if you experience it firsthand, then it's something that you want to get taken care of. I've called upon the community many, many times to have conversations, serious conversations. I belong to groups that had serious conversations. I've called on the Ministerial Alliance, of which I'm a member, and I'm the political chairman, to do something and say something. You know, this is ridiculous. I mean, we're all human. We need to sit down and talk about these things. We don't need to keep on hating on each other. You know, it's enough for everybody. And we need to focus. I'm going to say this. That may not go along with my sister here, but we need to focus on us. It's time for the United States of America to focus on us and our citizens, and we need to close our borders for a minute to do that. I'm being honest with you. We need to start focusing on us. We got some serious conversations that we need to have, and some of these things come from the fact that we have a lot of unemployment. We got our African-American males being incarcerated unfairly, and now we got our African-American females being incarcerated unfairly. And then we have a lot of single-parent homes. And that leaves our African-American women unprotected. Some of them are unprotected because there's no males in the home. Some kind of thing going on here. There's something going on here it's deeper than what some of us can even understand. But being a man of God, I know it's a spiritual thing. And so we got to call upon the mighty God to help us and fill us with the Holy Spirit power to be ready to do these things that we need to do as people. As people, we need to sit down and have some serious conversation, not this fake and shaking stuff, hand-picked committee members and all that kind of stuff, some serious members in the community. I even volunteered my name. Guess what? I'm not on the commission. I'm not offended because I'm going to still step up. I'm going to still talk about the injustices because that's what God placed me on this earth to do. I can't stand it. And I'm going to fight against it as long as I can live, as long as I'm alive. I'm going to continue to fight against injustice. And thank you, Teresa, Sister Haley, for giving me the opportunity to talk and say what I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Next, we're going to bring up Attorney Sam Cameron, who also serves as a county board member. Let's give him a hand as he comes forward. Justice.
Thank you, Teresa, and thank you all for coming here today. I'm here with my daughter, Justice. We've heard the phrase justice for Sonya Massey. Well, Justice is actually here today for Sonya Massey. But I remember after the tragic killing of Sonya Massey, a number of members of the press asked Ben Crump, the attorney representing the family, if the Sheriff Jack Campbell should resign. And I thought his answer was very appropriate. He said, well, that should be up to the voters of Sangamon County. The problem is, and I agree with him, the problem is that there was no mechanism for the voters of Sangamon County to express their will on whether they wanted Sheriff Jack Campbell to continue in office or they wanted him to resign. That's why we need recall in Sangamon County, and that's why my fellow county board member Mark Ayers, who's here, and two other county board members and I introduced a resolution to enact recall for our county sheriff in Sangamon County, and that resolution is going to be heard at a special elections committee meeting this evening. It's going to hold a hearing on that resolution at 5:30 over at the auditorium at Sangamon South, which is the building, the old State Journal Register building just south of the county building on 9th between Capitol and Monroe. And if any of you or any members of the public want to express their position as to whether the voters of Sangamon County should have the right to recall their county sheriff, come to that meeting tonight and you can testify as to whether you support recall or if you oppose recall. Many of our neighboring states such as Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Missouri have recall for local elected officials, and about 39 states have recall. We actually have recall in Illinois for the office of governor. That was enacted by an amendment to the Constitution after the Blagojevich debacle that, of course, occurred in this building. So the reason we need recall is because if people lose confidence in their elected officials, they need a way to remove that elected official, and recall is the way to do it. It's not easy to do. You have to get a lot of signatures on a petition, and then the question goes on the ballot, and then the voters decide yes or no, should we have recall. And if this resolution, if the County Board Elections Committee recommends passage of this resolution, as, by the way, the Massey Commission has already urged and recommended that the county board adopt recall for the office of county sheriff. If this resolution is recommended for passage by the elections committee and then passed by the full county board, it will have to go to be put on the ballot as a binding referendum in the April 1st election. There's a provision in the Illinois Constitution that allows both home rule and non-home rule units, such as Sangamon County, to adopt recall by a binding referendum, which would go on the ballot. So any of you, if you can come tonight to the Elections Committee meeting at 5:30 at Sangamon Center South Auditorium, please come, and thank you all for being here today, and thank you, Teresa.
Thank you, Sam. Next, we have some family and friends that we're going to bring up. So Asante couldn't be here. He's at work, but he has a very special person to come and talk. So you want to come on up and introduce yourself, please. Let's give her a hand as she comes forward. Come on, doctor.
Hello, my name is Margarita Foltz, and I'm the fiance of Sante Massey. Sonya meant a lot to us, and although he couldn't be here today, he wanted to make sure that the impact of this tragic loss was represented. Sante writes, "Good afternoon. Friday, December 6th will mark the 5th month that my cousin Sonya Lene Massey was tragically executed in her kitchen. And while most are enjoying their holiday season, my family are struggling to cope with the devastating loss. In a surprising twist that quite frankly is extremely poor taste and an egregious lack of sensibility, Sean Grayson is set to have a hearing on discussing the terms of his pretrial release on this terrible anniversary. Approximately 5 months after an unspeakable crime was perpetuated on Springfield's mother, daughter, sister, aunt, friend, confidant, the list goes on. A trio of Illinois appellate court judges granted pretrial release to her murderer through the Safety Act that was intended for low-level offenders, but subsequently provided a legal loophole to this legal team. This is payback, in my humble opinion, for passing the Safety Act. But the bigger issue is more ominous prospect: public confidence. While we were set to publicly dedicate a bridge to honor Sonya, this beautiful gesture has almost been undone by this horrible decision had we not been granted a stay until January 2nd. Ironically, the day after Sante's Aunt Donna's birthday, who's Sonya's mom. I implore the Illinois Supreme Court to reconsider this ruling and keep this murderer behind bars, not only for our sakes, but for mental anguish and so many others that have gone through this exacting and final police brutality. Everyone is watching the state of Illinois, and we hope that the Illinois Supreme Court makes the right decision. In my capacity as a transformational justice leader, I wrote a piece this morning to reflect on the impact this has on the community and on the Black race. I wish to God I could tell you an appellate court flaw is the name of the piece. I wish I could tell you it was not deep down and in there and systemic, but I cannot. It is truly, truly hit people of color and poverty like a full-blown pandemic. Some folks sit on their high horses because they are white. They think out of mind, and their experiences are out of sight. What is this elusive and idiotic problem Black and brown folks experience every day? It's called over-incarceration, systemic racism, economic disparities, injustice, and social dismay. It's called inequity, sexism, bigotry, police violence, diabetes, and the 1994 crime bill. It is synonymous for Black, Indigenous, and people of color getting another raw deal. One day I will tell you it is no longer deep down in there and systemic. But right now, they're treating the Safety Act like it is just a gimmick. I want to remain in Illinois, like many of my family and the white ally friend, but not to my detriment and an untimely, lethal end. They want to let a psychopathic misogynist out after he murdered Sonya Massey. To teach proponents of pretrial fairness, police will not be held to a standard to protect and serve. The appellate court wants to release a hateful and unremorseful killer, knowing it reads, "Thou shalt not kill," in God's holy word. Where is the justice for Sonya Massey? Why isn't justice for such urgently exacted like that deputy's gun? We are tired of hearing Black folks just waiting for our turn, while you prioritize justice for a white daughter or white son. Our feelings are raw. Our patience has worn thin. What kind of fair battle do you think you're in? You keep Black folks locked up for low-level, nonviolent crap, while you tunnel out of the laws and statuses for white murderers and literally hand them a get-out-of-free jail map. He did not comply with authority then, and he won't abide by any conditions now. The thought of house arrest won't even bring one bead of sweat to his unhuman and inhuman brow. I wish I could tell you racism wasn't deep down and in there and effing systemic, while some folks of color are being murdered after surviving a worldwide pandemic.
Thank you. That was deep. I think I'm going to drop the mic, but there's too many up here. At this time, I'm going to ask my friend, Dr. Lisa Johnson, to come forward, please. Let's give her a hand.
Good afternoon. I was asked to speak to you by Teresa Haley because this is an extremely serious issue that reaches not only the city of Springfield, which is the capital of Illinois, but it reaches across Illinois and across the United States of America. The idea that a white perpetrator who wears an officer's uniform should be given so much lenience, while so many Black people languish behind bars for insignificant and insufficient charges, is a relic that stems from the very beginning of the United States. as we sit here toward the end of 2024, I cannot help but to remember that this is the city that is reestablishing lines, land grants, having national attention drawn to it because it wants to celebrate or commemorate the 1908 Springfield riot. But I would like for us to ask ourselves if we are actually in 2024 or if this is still 1908. In 1908, none of the white people who enlisted such violence against black people along Madison and Jefferson streets, none of them ever suffered for the terrorism that they wrought in this community and particularly on people of color. None of them ever suffered. Are we in 1908 or are we in 2024? In 1908 and in 1919 in Chicago and in several other race riots across the state of Illinois, white people never paid for the injustices that were wrought against black people. And in 2024, we understand that there are whole families that are still suffering the intergenerational traumas that were inflicted on people like William Donnellan in 1908. As a matter of fact, as I am given to understand, the Massey family is connected to William Donnellan of 1908. So are we in 2024 or are we still in 1908? The idea that enslavement was legal, colonialism was legal, imperialism is legal. In order for capitalism to thrive, it absolutely requires that whole groups of people be oppressed. Capitalism calls for the exploitation of a labor force. And the United States has, in its infinite wisdom, decided that it would be easier to categorize people of color as the exploited class. And so they enlisted the help of police forces and a criminal justice system to make that exploitation solid and transferable across generations. So that in 2024, we still experience the vestiges of residential segregation and disproportionate access to resources, education, economic mobility. Our churches are still segregated. Our involvement in government is still segregated. Is it 2024 or is it 1908? The idea that anyone must galvanize this much attention for a criminal justice system that still practices the same type of institutional racism that allowed so much carnage in 1908, 1919, 1899, and then refused to teach children the real history. We had to have middle schoolers to come to the city council to plead for some commemoration for 1908. And this past week, we had to have high schoolers to plead for some commemoration of Indigenous Peoples Day, and the fact that white supremacy reigned so heavily that even Indigenous peoples' history could not be recognized in a state that has so many towns named for the very indigenous tribes that were annihilated. Is it 2024 or is it 1908? We are here to ask, plead, beg, demand that the appellate court not let this man go free. The idea that an institutionalized group of people should use the very Safety Act that has been put into place to save poor people and people of color, and use it to turn around and save a white supremacist murderer is not new. I wish it could say it was new. It is not new. It is a carryover of the centuries old institutional racism that has pervaded the criminal justice system, the government system, the education system, the economic system, and every other system that calls itself a bastion of justice. Is this justice? No. This is not justice. This is the same institutional racism that has been going on in the United States for over 400 years. This is what we must say to the appellate court. Absolutely not. This stops here. This stops here. Sean Grayson nor any other racist perpetuator of injustice and murder, no other perpetuator should be let go free, should be allowed the same rights that the rest of us have, should be allowed the opportunity to see their family members over Christmas or over New Year's or over President's Day or over Valentine's Day or over Easter or over the 4th of July, because what is your 4th of July to the enslaved black person? And there are some of those of us who would still claim that we are enslaved and not free yet. So at the very least, the appellate court must keep this man and all others like him behind bars, because as James Baldwin would say, I hear what you say, but I see what you do.
All right, Dr. Lisa. At this time, we have two more speakers that we're going to close it out with, and they're close family members. The next young lady that I'd like to bring up is Sonya Massey's first cousin. When I got the call that Sonya had been murdered and they needed help and they wanted to find out a way of getting a hold of Ben Crump, they called my personal cell phone right after church. I hurried over to the house only to find Sonya's first cousin on the floor sopping up blood with a body towel. And I yelled at her, and I didn't mean to yell at her, but it scared me. I said, "What are you doing?" And she says, "I'm trying to get the blood and get the house cleaned up before Sonya's babies get back," because we were having a balloon release later that day. And she just shook. She's not a public speaker, but this is her first cousin. So I'm going to bring her up, and as she comes up, say her name. Say her name. Say her name. Come on, baby girl. Let's give her a hand as she come up and encourage her. And this is her and her other cousin. All of them stay together. Tell them who you are.
I'm Shadia Massey. I'm Sonya's first cousin.
I'm Natasha Massey. I'm Sonya's first cousin.
And I don't have much to say. I just want the appellate court to not make the decision to allow Sean Grayson out. That is going to be a hurtful day for my family and Sonya's mother, who is not doing well, who has not done well since the day Sonya has passed. Letting Sean Grayson out, I think, will hurt my auntie real bad. So I'm just asking to do anything to not let him out of jail.
Thank you, baby girl. Let's give her a hand. Let's encourage her. Pastor, you want to say anything? Okay. And last but not least, I want to bring up Sonya's father, Mr. James Wilburn. Let's give him a hand, encourage him. He's been standing the whole time, y'all.
My message to those three judges who ruled unanimously that Sean Grayson is not a danger to the people of Springfield. If you got room in your house, give him a bedroom to live in your house. If there's a house for sale on your block, let him move on the block where you live. And we'll see how quickly that NIMBY attitude comes out in you. Not on my block. But you say he's no longer a threat to civilized people here in Springfield. I live in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. I feel safe where I live because we have a black county chief executive. We have black sheriffs, black mayors, black city council people. So the same kind of systemic racism that occurs here in Illinois' capital doesn't occur where I live. But I want to tell you that my people, they built rotundas like this. They built the one in Washington, D.C. See, my people, they worked for 400 years to build this country and never got a dime, never got one red penny. I see you, my brother, back there. I was eating in a restaurant here, and this young man came up and he said, I'm going to be here at this rally. I see you back there, my brother. I thank you all for being here. The last thing that my baby said to me was, Daddy, I love you. And we never, whether it was in person or on the telephone, did not end the conversation with her telling me that I love you. And I want to tell you all that until an undertaker puts some embalming fluid in this body, I'm going to fight to keep my daughter's killer in a jail cell. I don't ever want to see him walk free amongst any of us. If there is any debate, I'll take Greg Harris, Kwame Raoul, John Milhiser. I'll take them three, and I'll put them against those three appellate court justices, and we can have a debate on whether this killer, even though his fangs have been pulled, he doesn't have the ability right now to kill anybody because he's sitting in a jail cell where he should stay for the rest of his miserable life that he has left. I didn't prepare any remarks today, but I want to speak on behalf of my child that I don't have here anymore. I can't talk to her anymore. But as long as I have breath in my body, I would encourage the Illinois Supreme Court to keep that killer locked up. That's the best place for him, because it might be a problem if he gets out on these streets. I'm looking at some of my white brothers, brown brothers, black brothers. They've got a message for you, Sean Grayson. Come on out. Come on out.
At this time, we're going to open it up just for a few questions. Mr. Wilburn, you want to come back up? Mr. Calvin, you want to come back up? Come back up. Anybody else who spoke want to come back up? If you all
Sam,
have
come
any
on
questions.
up. Bring Justice with you.
Justice. I always tell Sam, Justice is usually just us. And then he turned around and named his baby Justice. She's beautiful. I've been holding on to her ever since she got here. But if the media has any questions that they want to ask, we're here.
You mentioned changes to the Safety Act that are needed, and obviously the appellate court utilized their interpretation of the Safety Act, saying that the prosecutors didn't make their case correctly. Do you think that that's enough? I mean, for the prosecutors to make a stronger case, or is there going to need to be some clarity in the law, some specific language about PD murder, alleged murderers, behind bars? What specifically are you looking for?
We're looking for Millhiser and his team to represent the family and the community, communicate to the Supreme Court whatever it is that they're saying we're missing that allows this jerk to be able to get out of jail. We're asking the legislators to sit down with community members, community leaders, those who are boots on the ground, those who have to live and walk every day and fear for their lives, to listen to us, to share with us what their main intent was, to work through whatever loopholes they have. Because as I stated earlier, this is not what the Safety Act was designed to do. Some people say it's doing exactly what it's designed to do because it's letting white people out of jail, murderers out of jail. Like I stated before, I got family members who are in jail for murder, for drug use. They're not letting them out of jail because these same judges are saying they have this additional charge. I'd rather you sell me a little weed than to shoot me. But that's not justification to keep us in jail. Yes.
I'd like to add something. Yes, sir. I'd like to add that a lot of our justice system is discretionary, of course, almost the whole thing. So, we really need to focus on the discretion misjudgments by these judges. And if the Supreme Court would do the right thing and use their discretion, of course, there's going to be discretionary parts of the bill, and none of us are legislators. So I think, let's focus on the actions of the appellate court judges that have abused their power.
I want to add one thing too as well. In the appellate ruling, the appellate judges basically stated in the ruling that he was acting in the capacity as a sheriff deputy instead of as an individual person. That's something also too that should probably be changed as well in the Safety Act as well, because regardless, he was acting as himself and on behalf of the sheriff's deputy. He is a danger. That was him doing that, regardless if he's a sheriff's deputy or not. So just because you're a sheriff's deputy, you think that allows you to get out of jail for murder because you were acting in capacity as a sheriff's deputy? No, it doesn't. He was acting as an individual as well. So that's something that also needs to be modified in the Safety Act as well, regardless if you're an individual or you're a sheriff's deputy or a Springfield police officer or any type of other officer. Thank you.
Dan, you got anything more? Any other questions?
Is the family confident in the county's handling of this so far? And given that the appeals court says the county didn't do enough to this alleged murder.
I think this is a bastardization of the Safety Act. I think the Safety Act was enacted to keep low-level criminals who could not afford a bond that was set to allow them to get out on bond. That wasn't for this guy has been charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder and 2 more felonies. This is a complete bastardization of it, and that's why I tell those 3 appeals courts judges to, if you think you can defend your position, go up against Kwame Raoul, go up against Greg Harris, go up against John Milheiser. Do it now. I'd like to see that debate occur.
Yes, Monica.
You spoke earlier about the need to lead on the Supreme Court. What's the best way to do that?
To write them. And what we have to do, we just had a major election. As we vote them in, we need to vote people out if they're not meeting the needs of the community. I care about people, not politics, but politics is a necessary evil. So pay attention to what's happening with our judges, and if they're not meeting the needs of you, your family, and your community, we need to vote them out, revisit it. Any other questions?
And that's also why we need recall, by the way.
Thank you. And recall is something that Sam Cammon introduced with the county board, and I supported it 100%. After Jack Campbell resigned, there's no way that another sheriff should have been appointed within days. There were no community forums. Let's introduce you to possible candidates and let you all weigh in on it. The decision was made behind closed doors. It was political. So as soon as we vote them in or put them in, we should be able to have recall to vote them out if they're not doing what they need to do. Yes, sir.
Just to dovetail on Mr. Bishop's question, does the family also have confidence in some other mechanisms like the Massey Commission, like the Department of Justice investigation? Do you have confidence in those?
Well, the Department of Justice, I don't have a lot of confidence in them because I haven't seen a lot of confidence in them. As you all know, I'm the past state president of the NAACP and the local branch president. I've dealt with them for over 25 years. No justice, no peace, and a lot of times it's just us. So I'm hoping that the Department of Justice will step up and do the right thing. When they came to Springfield and had a town hall meeting, they cherry-picked who they wanted to hear from. They didn't hear from people who were boots on the ground. They didn't hear from people who were being directly impacted. They decided who was articulate enough to speak on their behalf. But of course they didn't choose me because they didn't want the truth. But these young men and women, they serve on the Massey Commission. And I'm going to ask Shadea to say something because she's one of the co-chairs. How's that working for you? You want to be in the mic? Okay, you want to? Okay.
I mentioned earlier some of the resistance I'm facing from law enforcement officials in my group over common sense, logical reform measures. So I think, the time will tell on that, and time will tell on the DOJ. I'm not speaking for the family, but for the community, I will say, time will tell. And I myself was very disappointed in the timeliness of the DOJ investigation. I was calling Dick Durbin's office, Pritzker's office, Duckworth's office, the 2 days after Sonya got murdered, calling for a DOJ investigation. And until, 4 months down the road, for this to happen now, it does diminish my personal hopes of effectiveness. And we know with the new regime coming in and how they seem determined to tear down some of the federal power structures, I would say I'm skeptical at best. Yeah.
Thank you. Another commissioner?
I am optimistic in regards to the Sonya Massey Commission, but I am also cautious about it as well. And the reason why I say I'm cautious about it is because I want to make sure that the recommendations that we make is approved by the Sangamon County Board. And that's how we will know how effective the Sonya Massey Commission is. I do also want to address as well as the DOJ investigation and my feeling in regards to that. My feeling in regards to that is that I don't have any hope for a DOJ investigation, especially with the new administration that is coming in, especially with a new president that's coming in where he is stating that he would like to have federal immunity for police officers. So my hope for the DOJ investigation, I have none in that. So thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Lisa, Dr. Faltz, anybody else? Any comments? Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Well, I can say that we're holding it together. We are not doing well. My Aunt Donna she's just not going to be herself ever again. So us having to be around her, someone with her all day, every day, loving on her as much as we can. She doesn't sleep, she doesn't eat, she cries all day, all night. Like, it's sad, and yeah, the family's not doing good at all.
And Sonya has 3 sisters, and there are times when they call and we have to have a meeting with each other. We have to hold up each other because we have good days and we have bad days. But I do feel the prayers and thoughts of people all over the world holding us up as a family. And I want to let you know I appreciate that. That's the reason why I can stand before you and speak boldly as I can. I haven't had the greatest of health myself. In 2022, I had a quadruple heart bypass, and many people are worried about me. But through the grace of God, I stand here before you. Amen. Amen?
Amen.
So just to put a point on this, one of the courses that I teach is the sociology of mental health. And I also teach about the social psychology of social inequality. I just moved here from Chico, California, where Desmond Phillips was killed by police, and I just got a message yesterday from Desmond Phillips' father. Desmond Phillips was killed in 2017. David Phillips is still not well. His life will be changed forever. The course of his life has been changed. And when we speak of this in our courses, we understand how a tragedy like this calls a family to look at everything else in the world and look at just what we're looking at now, how the system has continued, right, to deplete us of our health, right? When we're talking about social determinants of health, this is a health issue, okay? So the fact that Donna Massey is not doing well should be no surprise to anyone, okay? No one should expect anybody here to be doing well. It should not ever be expected. They will need so much support from now until their children are born, okay? Natasha will have children, and her children will suffer for this. And so when you're asking how a family is, none of us is well. Intergenerational trauma, vicarious trauma, understand that this has been going on all over the United States. None of us is well. None of us is well.
And in closing, I'm just going to ask each and every one of you to do self-care. Self-care is so important as we're in these winter months, more seasonal effects disorder. If you find yourself waking up, it's dark, and you get off work and it's dark and you're tired, get your body moving. Do some exercise. If you're stressed, depressed, get help. It's okay. Talk to a friend and stay off of social media. That will take care of you all. And thank you all so much for being here today. We really appreciate you all. Enjoy your time.